Hey, friends! Just so you know, we enjoy the swear word and we rely on good old fashioned humor to get through some seriously dark subject matter. At no time do we intend any disrespect toward the victims or families of the victims in the cases we cover. Also, be sure to listen to the end for a few palate cleansing bloopers to reset your mindset. And with that, we thank you for listening and we hope you enjoy.
Hey, friends. Welcome to Crime Will Tell. I'm Jamie.
I'm Carrie.
Hey, girl.
Hi. It's fun to see you. I haven't seen you for a while.
I know it's been a minute. How you been?
Been very good actually.
Sweet. What you drinking? What you got there?
Because it's so bleh outside, hot and kind of sticky gross, I'm actually going to drink a beer.
Okay.
I'm going to open it.
Oh,
Doesn't that sound just the sound of summer right there?
it's beautiful.
Yeah. So, I'm drinking a beer this time.
Okay.
I don't know. What are you drinking?
So I am drinking bourbon still. This is Ezra Brooks 99 bourbon, but I'm drinking it with some muddled blueberries and lemonade.
Oh my god, that sounds delicious.
I was inspired by a really cool restaurant that I went to called The Lost Dog in Binghamton, New York. Drank one at lunch one day and I was like, this is going to be my summertime drink. And it show is. It's tasty and refreshing as fuck.
All right. Well, cheers.
Cheers, my friend. Clink.
Clink.
Mm, mm,
You have
mm.
a story for us today, huh?
I do. I do.
Before we get into that, though, can I do a bit of Brothers Babble?
Yes, ma'am. Let's do
Okay,
it.
so Brothers Babble was a little unusual this time because he actually called me.
Oh, a true babble.
Yeah, he was like, "Hey, I have two questions." So this is referencing the last episode on Ali Abulaban, which I have an update on.
Okay.
And he said, I made the comment apparently that something about the Muslim culture.
Hmm.
And I think I was wrong saying that. And he was like, "Hey, I don't think it's Muslim culture. I think it's Muslim faith." I don't know what the right vernacular is. So I only bring that up to say I'm super ignorant when it comes to all of that stuff. So no offense was intended, but if there's others out there that are listening and they can clear it up, please, send us a quick note to clear it up.
Teach
That
us.
was one. Yeah, teach us. The other thing that brother said was I made the comment about when Allie was driving over to the apartment, he did cocaine on the way. And during his trial, he said it was the most coke he had ever done. And I had made the comment that the fact that Allie was doing coke didn't help anything. Brother was like, is there a time when doing the most cocaine ever would be helpful? Like, I don't know that I've ever heard somebody going, wow, that went really bad. Could you imagine how that would have gone had I not done all of this cocaine? God, thank
Right.
God I did most coke I've ever done in my life. Otherwise, this would have been a shit show.
It's true.
So that was Brothers Babel. But the update that I have is so originally Ali Abulaban was supposed to be sentenced on Friday, June 28th.
Hmm.
His lawyer requested a continuance. And so his sentencing has been delayed until September 6th is the next court date.
Wow. Okay.
He'll probably get life. Who knows?
It seems likely. But okay. Are you ready for this one? Episode 28.
I'm not sure. I don't even know what it's about. I intentionally did not look.
This one is a doozy because this involves a cold case, but the answers to this like decades old cold case came from a very surprising source.
Oh,
That's all I'm going to say. So hold on to your tits, Carrie. We're going for a little ride.
all
Are
right.
you
I'm
ready?
holding.
You
Yep,
got
I'm
them. I
ready.
see you. I see you. You got them.
I got him.
Um, so first, we're going to start in California in 1988. So Lysandra Marie Turpin, who went by Sandy, grew up in Eureka, California. And she was known to be just very kind and fun. she was super close with her mother and her friends, and she talked to her mom on the phone every day. So she's obviously very connected with her mother and her friends. And when her mom didn't hear from her for weeks, she knew something wasn't right. And so in April of 1988, when Sandy was 27 years old, her mom filed a missing person report with the police.
Okay. And this is before cell phones and all of that jazz.
Right. Yeah. So it was
Okay.
just like she kind of relied on her daughter to call. And she was like, fuck, it's been a while. I'm going to call police.
How come it took a couple weeks?
I don't know.
I would think by like day 3 or 4, she's on the horn with the police. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I thought the same thing. I was like, I would have acted a little quicker, but whatever. So Sandy's good friend Tess and other people close to her suspected that Sandy's husband, whose name was Blue,
Cool name. Okay.
yeah, I bet he had some clues. They thought that Blue had something to do with her disappearance because they had seen her in the past with black eyes and had just kind of
Oh,
noticed some other signs of possible physical abuse when they were dating, and they had all begged Sandy to stop seeing him, but unfortunately she and Blue ended up eloping, and from what they knew, the two of them had gone off to Oregon to live and no one had seen her since. So she literally just kind of like was with this guy that they all hated or didn't trust. They eloped, and she just, as far as they knew, she was in Oregon somewhere, and none of them had heard from her.
was this at the same time that she stopped communicating with her mom?
Yeah. There weren't a lot of details about this portion of things. It was just kind of like, where the fuck did Sandy go? Haven't heard from her. Holy shit. That was it. So I don't have a lot of details about this part, and I apologize. Um, so Sandy's friend Tess actually ended up calling Blue and was like, "Where the fuck is Sandy?" And he was like, "She just left." And he's like, "I have no idea where she went. She just left one day. I haven't seen or heard from her since." So they're like,
Okay.
"Okay." Police actually interviewed Blue, and he told them the same thing. He was just like, "I don't know where she is." But then he was like, "You know what? I bet she was abducted by a satanic cult."
What?
Yeah, that was what he threw out to police. So they're like, maybe, doubt it, but thanks, man.
Did he say why he felt that way?
Just, I think that it was probably a thing that was going around with Manson and just all these things that, like, if somebody
Sure.
disappeared, like, the first instinct was a
Yeah, because
cult
wasn't
took
it
them.
like the late 80s, early 90s? Wasn't that satanic panic time?
Yeah, like, that's when all this, so it was just kind of like something strange happened. It was probably a satanic cult.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
So Blue seemed like a bit of a dingleberry, but they really had nothing to hold him on. They were just kind of like, okay. And so investigators just ran out of leads.
Was Blue his real name?
I don't think so. I couldn't find any information about him. It was just that people being interviewed on the case episode referred to him as Blue. Didn't
As
show any
Blue.
pictures of him, didn't say his real name, nothing. I was just like, okay.
That's part of the challenge of the 70s and 80s and maybe in the early 90s cases, especially the ones that have gone cold. There's like very little information.
Mhm.
And some of the information is just not right. It's not legitimate, so it's hard.
Right.
It's hard to
Yeah.
follow the clues.
There wasn't any evidence to suspect any sort of foul play, so her case just quickly went cold. Like, her friends and her family knew that she would have at least reached out to her mother, if nothing else. Like, she would have found a way to contact her mom. And so they all knew that something bad must have happened. Things hit a dead end, and I'm sure to everybody close to her, it just kind of felt like it might never be solved because
Oh my, that's
just
so
nobody seemed to
frustrating.
know
And
anything. Yeah.
yeah, heartbreaking.
So, and the other thing too is that, like, at the time of her disappearance, I mean, Sandy's friends were young and maybe into some shit that they weren't going out of their way to put themselves in front of police officers. That even if they knew something, they probably weren't going to go forward on their own and offer any information, which I think was also a little bit of a struggle.
Mm.
So, they just probably weren't getting a lot of information. when
Mhm.
police did look into it. But 20 years after her friend Sandy went missing, Tess, who I'd mentioned before, was encouraged by her husband to go speak to police because, I mean, this case had been haunting her. She didn't know what happened to her friend and she just kind of been sitting with it. And so he was like, why don't you just go talk to police and just tell them everything that you know? Like, it can't hurt anything. And at least you'll know that you did your part, that you told them everything that you know. And, if nothing else, just lighten some of the weight that you've been carrying for 20 years.
Can you imagine? I can't even imagine what Tess must have been going through to have a friend that just goes missing and there's fucking nothing. There's nothing. There's no information, no lead, no nothing, and your friend's gone.
And you suspect that someone might be involved, but you can't push
Prove
things
it.
like you don't. Yeah. And so I'm sure it just like ate at her every day. So Tess ended up going to the police station and she spoke with Officer Mary Anderson. And Anderson was like, whoa, it's super fucking weird that you came in because I was just given a pile of cold case files to review. And she's like, and Sandy's case is one of them. So it was like she had just kind of been reading through it. Her friend, it was just like, whoa,
Ooh,
what's
yeah, that
going
is
on?
weird.
And as she had looked over the case, a lot of people who were close to Sandy had passed away by this time, which seemed to kind of make the cold case even colder because she couldn't go back and re-interview a lot of the people that the initial investigators had spoken with. So Officer Anderson and Tess spoke, and Tess told her about, the abuse that she'd suspected from Blue between her, Sandy and Blue, and how she was like, it just something wasn't right. And he just kind of brushed me off when I asked him about it, just trying to give any details that she had that, might help the investigation. And so Anderson started digging further into the case, and she found a statement that had been given to police from a local fisherman named Ernest Christie Jr., who had apparently been seen with Sandy in the weeks before she went missing. Initially, when Ernie had been questioned, he told the police that he'd last seen her in March. And so she was reported missing in April. So this would have been in the weeks before she went missing, I guess. And he said, I guess she got married and guess she moved to Oregon. Like he just was kind of like, meh, but he was kind of like giving the same information that other people close to her had given. So they didn't really investigate too much further.
So Ernie was a fisherman in California.
Yes.
And so he was with her in March of 1988. And then he's saying to the police at that time, I guess she went and eloped and moved to Oregon, and I haven't seen her since.
Yeah. Which
Okay.
was in line with what everybody else was saying. Like she was here in California and then she married this fucker and apparently is in Oregon and none of us have a clue what's going on. So Officer Anderson, when she was looking into this, learned that Ernie Christie had actually died in June of 2006 at the age of 61 from congestive heart failure. So again, it was just like dead end after dead end. But fucking weird as hell, about a year later, the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office in California received a message from someone who was living in North Carolina saying that they had information regarding a person who had gone missing 22 years earlier, who was Sandy Turpin.
Oh.
So they're like, wait, what? Holy shit. Okay. And this message was from 38-year-old Sam Christie, who was the son of Ernie Christie, the
Oh.
fisherman who had been seen with Sandy. And so Detective Stephen Quinnell got this message and he was reviewing it and he ended up speaking with Sam Christie and recorded their conversation. Sam told him that when he was 16 years old, his dad Ernie had started a romantic relationship with Sandy and that she had actually lived with him and his father for a while. And not long after she started living there, Ernie had started physically abusing her. The story that he told from there about his father is absolute fucking madness.
Oh.
We're going to get to the rest of that in a moment. This will
Okay.
all tie together. So when I was first reading this, I was like, why is this guy just now coming forward with
Yeah.
information? Like 22 years later. Like, is he full of shit? And Detective Quinnell was thinking the same thing and was like, what is this? Like, is he a criminal or is he another victim in this case? And so initially he wasn't quite sure what to make of the story that Sam was telling him. But Sam said that he had blocked out the devastating things that he'd experienced and witnessed as a kid. But as he got older, he started having nightmares and was reliving the things that he'd seen. And so after his father had passed away in 2006, he was finally able to start processing through the traumatic things that he'd seen and be able to talk about what had happened. And so the weight of the secrets that he'd carried with him just kind of became too much and he needed to free himself, he said. So he was just like, here's all of it.
Wow.
So he was actually interviewed in an episode of On the Case with Paula Zahn. And so she was
Oh,
interviewing him. Love
I
it.
love Paula Zahn.
Me too. Um, and he said that one of his earliest memories as a child was his dad shutting him in the oven as a punishment. He said that the next time he talked without being spoken to, he would put him back in there and turn the oven on. So this was just kind of the behavior that he was used to. And these are like some of his first memories of his father.
Oh my God.
Sam said that his father was physically and emotionally abusive just constantly, and he was absolutely terrified of him. He did everything he could to stay on his father's good side just to avoid his wrath and the abuse that he just doled out constantly. And his mother was on occasion able to step in and protect him from being abused, but unfortunately she passed away when he was 5 years old. So that
Uh,
protection was
how did she
short-lived.
pass away?
On March 30th of 1977, Ernie Christie's fishing boat, which was called the Fame L, sank. So his fishing boat sank. Ernie and his wife were the only two people on board. Ernie was rescued, but his wife was presumed lost at sea. So devastating and also suspicious as fuck.
Mhm.
Sam was then unfortunately left to live alone with his father and had no one to protect him from this endless abuse.
And he was 5.
Yeah.
Kid.
And so what he witnessed over the years was absolutely horrifying. So he went on to just spill everything to Detective Quinnell. He told him that his dad would pick up women on the streets and offer them drugs. His father's drug of choice was methamphetamine, but he would get heroin, whatever needed to kind of lure these women in and convince them to come home with him. And once there, he would basically beat the shit out of them and hold them captive for a while. He would usually end up letting them go, knowing that they had become so scared of him that they wouldn't report him to police.
Oh my God. That's disgusting.
And so Sam is just like growing up watching this behavior repeated over and over by his father in his house. So I think it was just kind of like, go to your room, kid. And in the other room, he's hearing,
I wonder if there was a part of Sam that was like feeling guilty about the fact that his father was abusing these women, but at least it wasn't him.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure that that was part of it. And when he's young, he's like, what can I do? So he told Detective Quinnell about a woman named Patty who had used drugs with Ernie. Or that was kind of like one of his little buddies that he did drugs with. And while like he was high as fuck one night on meth, he was accusing her of selling him poison and trying to kill him. So he's obviously just paranoid and
Mhm.
like going bananas. He started beating her and was trying to get her to confess to like a murder plot to kill. He was like, "Who's involved? Like, who all's behind this plot to kill me?" And just like losing his goddamn mind. And so at this time, Sam was 15 and he's hearing all of this. And the next morning, when he woke up, his father was like, "Look, I can't let Patty go." So he was planning on keeping her at their house until all of the bruising and other evidence of abuse had healed. So instead of keeping her at their house, Ernie held Patty captive inside of a hollowed out stump of a massive redwood tree.
What?
Yeah.
What?
So if you're not familiar, Redwood trees are fucking gigantic. They are
Yeah, you can
huge.
drive a car through them.
So there was a hollowed out stump of a redwood tree that had been cut down so you could like look down inside of it. So Ernie made Sam put blankets and water jugs down in this stump and then build a trap door to go over the top of it. He then made Patty climb down into the stump, which was like 15 feet at least, down into the inside of this stump, pulled the ladder out, and held her captive inside of this tree and just kept her there as a prisoner.
Was this stump on his land? On his by his
Yes.
like oh
Yeah.
my god.
So about 2 weeks later, she was somehow able to dig out from the bottom of the tree, like through the
Yeah,
roots or
girl.
whatever. She was able to like burrow out. And Sam happened to see her get out. And he's, again, like 15 years old, scared shitless. And he's like, he was torn on what to do.
Yeah, I bet.
If Ernie saw her out, he'd kill her. If he knew that Sam let her go, he'd probably kill him. If she went and he decided to go with her, he'd hunt them down and come after both of them. So he was just like, fuck, I don't know what to do. He panicked. And like this just kind of shows, how much just fear he had toward his father, that he ended up going and getting his dad and was like, hey, she escaped. And they put her back inside the tree, held her there, but he ended up letting her go a week later.
Really?
Yeah. I'm sure after just threatening the absolute fuck out of her. So Detective Quinnell is listening to this story and he's like, this is weird and it might just be a giant load of bullshit. But in my mind, like whenever you hear a lot of these true crime stories, sometimes the most outlandish shit is what's real.
Yeah.
If you give just like this basic, like you can't really question it, like usually that's when somebody's making shit up, is because you're not going to question it. But if it's like this bizarre, here's how I ended up meeting this person or whatever, usually it's the most outlandish shit that's like actually what happened, because you
Yeah,
couldn't
like
make that shit
you
up.
yeah, exactly. Like you just can't even make this shit up. I don't understand the I don't understand what the hell. Well, I mean, I guess if he was addicted to meth, he was probably high all the time, but I don't understand what Ernie was thinking keeping Patty prisoner in his house and then a stump for weeks and weeks and then just decided to let her go even after she tried to escape?
Yeah.
Like that's how much confidence Ernie had that she wasn't going to turn him in.
Right. Yeah, he's like, you just scare the shit out of people and they
Yeah,
don't
and
come
then you
after
have
you.
massive control over them and
Yeah. And we'll get into it a little bit more, but he had just kind of, that had been his life, was just getting away with stuff and making people fear you, and you can get away with all kinds of shit. So, any hoozles, Quinnell looked further into Patty's case, and she unfortunately had passed away by that time and had never reported anything to the police. But he was able to verify the story with people who knew her. Like she had told people close to her, but was like, you cannot tell anyone. He will come after us. He will kill me. So these people knew the story. And so Quinnell was like, holy fuck. Like he
okay,
actually,
so Sam told this story and Quinnell was able to verify it.
yes, exactly. So Sam was living in North Carolina at the time, like I said previously, but he was able to show Quinnell on a map of their property, like an aerial view. He was able to be like, here's where the stump was. And sure as shit, when police cut into that stump, they found women's clothing, water jugs, syringes.
Oh my god, it was all still there.
Yeah, yeah, it hadn't been cleared out. Like
Decades later.
they just let her go and that shit was still down in the stump. And so they're like, holy fuck, he's telling us the truth.
Oh my god.
Police were shocked by these events, of course. But Ernie Christie was kind of well known by law enforcement in Eureka, California, because he
That
was just known to be a bully and abusive towards women, just a
he was an
fucking
absolute
menace.
monster, it
Yeah,
sounds
just
like.
and a menace. Like just they dealt with him for years. He'd get into fights, he was driving drunk, using drugs. Like they just knew him for a lot of things. He'd allegedly started some houses on fire Just normal Tuesday night shit, right? Ernie was just a blue ribbon asshole.
Blue
He
ribbon asshole. Love
and
it.
everybody everybody fucking knew it. And he'd been previously arrested for driving around and shooting at the houses of people he didn't like.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he actually spent 3 years in jail for that dumb fuckery, which is great. During that time, Sam lived with his grandparents, his dad's parents, and thrived.
Oh no. And then when Ernie got out, he went back and lived with his dad. Oh
Yeah.
man.
He said that that time with his grandparents was the happiest, most normal part of his childhood because he wasn't witnessing abuse every day. He wasn't around drugs. By all accounts, his grandparents were amazing people. And his grandmother, I believe her name was Lena, was incredibly kind, just known to be generous and helping people. And she always urged Sam to keep his mouth shut about his father because she was embarrassed by
Um,
the monster that was her son. She was just like, I don't know how
it's not the way they
he
raised him,
yeah,
obviously. And
like I don't know how he ended up the way that he is. So we're not going to talk
he's-
about it. But
oh
anyway,
my.
he lived with him for like 3 years and then when his dad was released from jail, he was back under his roof. And he watched his dad kind of go through a lot of just short-lived relationships, with women that just centered around drug use and violence. So it's just kind of this same
Cycle.
pattern over and over. And after he was out of jail, Ernie actually married a woman named Nina. After beating the absolute shit out of her one day, she ended up going to police. And
Oh,
yeah, she was like, you know
okay.
what? Fuck you,
Fuck
Ernie.
you. Yep.
And he was arrested, but he was found not guilty by a jury.
Why? What?
I don't know. I believe that Ernie's family had money. They owned a lot of property, and I think they got him a good lawyer. And for whatever reason, he was let off. And
Did he like try to go after Nina after that?
I don't think so.
Okay, so she escaped.
Yeah, yep. So she was out of the picture at that point. But this was just reinforced the thought in Ernie's mind that
He could get away
nobody,
with anything.
yeah, he was
Sorry.
untouchable. Nobody could mess
Getting
with
a
him.
little getting a little riled up about this fucking Ernie shit.
Yeah, this is another case
Goddamn
of
Ernie.
somebody just,
Getting away. Getting away with
yeah,
fucking
just 3 strikes don't count for this motherfucker. It's like,
he's also fucking up his kid.
yeah, exactly. And he just could rule by fear. He could get his kid to do whatever he wanted by
Of
scaring
course.
him, beating
Yeah.
him. And this fear kept Sam from standing up to his father. Even as he grew and was taller than him and bigger than him, he just couldn't do
Fear,
anything. And
fear is
he,
a very powerful paralyzer.
yeah. And so he just continued having to watch his father do unspeakable things to women. So now we're circling back to Sandy.
Okay.
As Sam is talking to Detective Quinnell, he is telling him about what he knew about her disappearance. So he said that things were actually really different with Sandy once she started living with them and his father, that initially they seemed really happy and got along well. Like this was just kind of a different dynamic with his dad. And he remembered her being very sweet and kind, and that they would actually joke around and laugh, and that they kind of had a fun household. It was short lived, but he was like, just something was different with her. But after about a month or so, things changed drastically. Apparently, there were a lot of drugs involved. Sam later said that Sandy was using heroin.
Mm.
This is from Sam, so I don't know that that was known by her friends and family or anything, but he said that she was using heroin. And of course, Ernie was a big fan of meth. So just none of this is a great mixture. So Ernie started keeping Sandy tied up in their bedroom, and he would just beat her constantly. He tortured her for weeks until one day Sam came home from school. I believe this was in June of 1988. So I don't know if he was in summer school or if it was like early June and he was still in school, but whatever. And Ernie had beaten Sandy just so badly that, and she was tied to a chair.
Oh my
and he's
God.
just beating the shit out of her. And she was alive, but she wasn't responsive. Like, I guess she just like was just like staring at the wall. And Ernie was like, "Kid, go get the car. Go grab the car." And so Sam pulls the car around to the house, and Ernie brought Sandy out wrapped in a blanket and put her in the trunk of the car. He then made Sam go get a can of gasoline and some tires and put them in the back seat. And they ended up driving to an abandoned road. Ernie pulled Sandy out of the trunk, told Sam to turn around, and he heard his father hit Sandy in the head with some kind of object. He said she made a low moan, and then there was absolute silence. They then took Sandy's body to a ditch on some land that I guess Ernie's family owned. And so they put her, or he, put her down in this ditch, and then he had Sam put the tires on top of her. Ernie poured gasoline over Sandy's body and the tires and lit them on fire.
Oh my
He
God.
he then turned to Sam and said, "Well, there's no way you're going to keep this shit to yourself or keep this shit a secret or something like that." And so he thought that his dad was going to kill him too. He didn't, but it just put this whole new level of fear on
Oh my God.
Sam. He said that Ernie made him go back later that day and make sure that the job had been done, that Sandy's body was burned. And
Oh
he
my
said
God.
he remembered kind of poking around and he saw a skull, but he was just like, "Yep, dad, it's she's got, there's nothing left or whatever." And he's just like, had to go, but remember seeing her skull.
Oh my God.
So for a year, well, I mean, really after that day, Sam was just trying to basically constantly convince his father that he wasn't going to say anything, just fearing for his life. And so for like a year after Sandy was murdered, he made Sam sleep in the living room on a couch. So they had like two couches in their living room. He made Sam sleep on one, and then Ernie would sleep on the other one to make sure he wouldn't like escape in the night. And Sam said that he woke up one night and his father was just sitting on the other couch staring at him with a rifle in his lap. And he told Sam, he's like, "Go back to sleep." He said, "I'm still trying to decide what to do with you."
Oh my God. So you said that this whole situation took place in June of 1988,
Yes.
but she was declared missing in April of 1988.
Hmm.
So, and then Ernie said the last I saw her was in March of 1988.
Yeah.
So this whole time, Sandy was being kept by Ernie.
It was never really clear. But I think what happened was she had gone to Oregon with Blue, but something went wrong. I think Blue was right. Like she just left one day and he didn't know where she went. I think she ended up back in California, hooked up with Ernie, and then was living with him until he killed her.
I just,
So, like, whenever her family and friends were like, "We haven't heard from Sandy," she had eloped with Blue, her
okay.
husband. They had gone to Oregon. And then nobody had heard from her. And so when Blue was questioned, he was like, "She left. I have no idea where she went." Like, I think that was true, that she left him in Oregon and made her way back to California and
Okay.
ended up, for whatever reason, hooking up with Ernie.
And Ernie didn't say, "Oh, hey, you guys, they're looking for Sandy. Here she is."
Yeah, no, because
Because why would he? Because now he's
yeah,
got complete.
he's got complete control of her.
Oh
He
my
kept her
God.
inside the
Okay.
house and kept her drugged up. And so they were just fucked up all the time. And then he ended up abusing her.
So when she was reported missing by her family, she was still alive.
Yeah. And so there was just kind of a month that she lived with Sam and Ernie.
And she didn't contact her mom because she was just constantly high, I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
And I mean that's just my assumption. It that like that window is very vague.
And maybe Ernie didn't let her contact her parents, like
Yeah.
her mom.
Yeah. Maybe they didn't have a phone. Who knows? I don't
I
know.
really wish like that month of
Yeah.
time.
And really there isn't much about Sandy's case. The only thing that there is Sam's
account of what
Yeah,
happened.
of what
Okay.
happened. And everybody else from that time period is gone and can't fill in any pieces. So, and Sam said that like about a month after Sandy was murdered, that Ernie took him out on his fishing boat and beat the absolute crap out of him with the handle of a large knife. So he's like holding a knife, like threatening him. Again, he thinks his dad is going to kill him, but he's just like beating the shit out of him with the handle. And he thought that he was going to, kill him and dump his body in the water. Thankfully, he didn't, but he just kept kind of like scaring him, like, I can do this.
To reinforce. Yep.
And so, after getting all of these details about all the things that Ernie had done, detectives kind of had to determine what Sam's involvement was with these crimes. Ernie was dead. Patty was dead. There were no other people that could come forward and share their versions of what had happened. So Sam ended up mailing a map of where Sandy's body had been placed. So again, he's like, this is exactly where you can find her. And after searching that area, police found human bones, teeth, and clothing, and the remains were confirmed to be Sandy's.
Holy shit.
So again, he's like, God damn, this shit is like far fetched, but once again, he led us right to it. And so Sam said that he was fully prepared to be arrested for his involvement in the crimes. Like he thought that he would be charged with an accomplice to murder, but that he really needed to do what was right and come forward with the information. Detectives determined that his involvement was only based just on the fear that his father put on him, that he didn't want to hurt anyone, but was so scared of what his dad would do to him. And so prosecutors agreed and they chose not to charge Sam with any crimes.
Oh my God. And he only like told the police after his father died. That's how much fear over decades that Ernie
Yeah.
had over him.
And so it sucks that Ernie lived the remainder of his life as a free man, like into his 60s,
Yeah.
but Sam was able to offer information that solved cold cases and, could offer answers to loved ones of some of these victims. He actually told Detective Quinnell about another woman that his father had captured and taken out on his fishing boat, and he tied her wrists with duct tape, held her down in the boat, and he told her that they were going fishing, but that she wasn't coming back. So she's just like, she knew he was going to kill her. Fortunately, someone on the dock saw Ernie and like shouted at him, and like, "Hey, Ernie," or whatever. And the woman took that opportunity, jumped out of the fucking boat, and swam to safety.
Wow.
And so Detective Quinnell investigated this too, and the woman actually came forward and was like, "Yeah, that was me. That happened." And so like all these things that Sam was telling, like the detectives are confirming. So then on top of that, Sam also opened up to detectives about what happened to his mother. So her name was Claire Louise. She was 16 years old when she was introduced to Ernie, who was 23.
Ew.
Gross, yeah. And she was 25 when she passed away after the boat sank.
Oh my God.
So Claire's family and friends didn't think that the sinking boat and her death were an accident. A lot of them, including Sam, thought that Ernie killed his wife and made it look like an accident.
Mhm.
So Detective Quinnell started looking into Claire's case again, and a woman had come forward and said that she had been held captive and tortured by Ernie, like he did with God only knows how many women, and that during that time he had admitted to her that he'd killed his wife. I'm sure it was probably some sort of like, I fucking killed my wife, I'll kill you too, you bitch,
Right.
kind of a thing. Unfortunately, they had no evidence to prove that she had been murdered, but he fucking killed her. Like, let's be real. I don't believe for a second that it was an accident. And Sam said that his dad had told him that he and Claire, so his wife, were on the boat and hit a huge wave that flipped the boat. For some reason, they were in the engine room of the boat and that water started pouring into the room Ernie said that the motion of the water kind of like pushed him out of the boat where he was rescued by the Coast Guard. And that so Claire was obviously like stuck inside the engine room. She drowned. He just was fortunate enough to just kind of be swept conveniently out to be rescued. The Coast Guard said that they searched 90% of the boat for Claire, but that the door to the engine room was locked, which there was no reason to have a lock on that. Like, that's a room you want to be able to get to easily.
Yeah, which means he fucking locked her in that room and then sank the boat.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what Sam's account is. He's like, he killed my mother, and so Sam believes that his father locked his mother in the room, sunk the boat due to the depth of the water and the pretty rough water that it was. It was too difficult for divers to locate and search the whole boat. Claire's body was never found.
Oh my god, that's sad.
Because I think initially the boat was like had a buoy on it, so they could locate it, and divers had gone down, but they couldn't access that engine room.
Mm.
But that was the only part that they didn't search, and I can pretty much guarantee that she was in there. And
So to this day, her body's never been recovered.
right, yeah, she's never been found. And so, of course, police like looked into other cold cases in California to see if there might be any connection to Ernie. And I wasn't able to find any information about any other victims, but I have to think that there's more. He was just too evil and got away with too much for there not to be more women out there that he hurt and other shit that he did and just got away with or haven't, been connected to him yet. Doing research on this, I saw a lot of comments online questioning whether like Sam was being real, what his involvement was, and whether or not he had a bigger role in the torture of these women. That as he got old enough, he could have stopped his father or gone to authorities. Because I think that he actually lived with his dad till he was like 23. So people are like, why didn't he get out the second he had a fucking chance? He could have gotten away. And so some people were kind of speculating that maybe with advancements in DNA, that he panicked and wanted to kind of separate himself and protect himself. And after his father died, he could be like, no, it was him. Like, if you find my DNA somewhere, here's why. So there's kind of, I don't know, these split people that are like, oh my God, this poor guy, he was a victim. And then there's other people like, I don't fucking know. I don't know. Like, do you have any thoughts?
I don't know either, but the one thought that keeps rolling around in my head is how, after all of these years, why didn't Ernie kill Sam?
Mm-hmm.
Because Sam saw and knew and was, according to Sam, forced to participate
Yeah.
in the cover up of some of these things. So if anybody could bring Ernie down, it was Sam. And also, taking care of a kid is probably not in Ernie's DNA. Why didn't he just kill Sam? I don't know why he didn't just kill Sam. Like, I don't know why he let him live. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless it was because he knew that he could control Sam. And people like Ernie, I mean, I suspect or I'm guessing that they get off on control. They get off on being able to control others. And so maybe keeping Sam alive and knowing that he could 100% control everything about Sam, like he got off on that. I understand why some people think that maybe Sam was a little bit more involved than he's trying to say he was.
Right.
Um, but maybe a lot of it was like he was forced to be, or he felt like he was forced to be involved. I don't know. That's a tough one.
It is. And it's like abuse and fear are
They're
keep you
powerful.
locked
Yes.
in situations that you don't want to be. And
Yes.
I can't imagine how scared he was of his father. I absolutely believe that. And then I kind of go, he kind of put himself out there, tying himself to these cases. nobody was going to find that fucking tree and go, "Oh my god, somebody held someone in here. Let's swab it." Like, nobody was going to know that that woman was held in a tree, and nobody had ever tied Ernie to Sandy's case. I don't think that her remains would have been found for an incredible amount of time, and it doesn't seem like there were any ties to Ernie that would have led back to Sam. So, I think that he could have, like, separated himself and, like, if he was involved, gotten away, but he put himself out there and risked being charged with crimes just to be able to kind of clear the situation, provide answers for law enforcement and families. And so I kind of am leaning more towards that he could have just kept his mouth shut and there probably wouldn't have been any connection to him ever.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if it wasn't for Sam, the Patty situation with the hollowed out stump would never have been found. The ditch with the bones of Sandy would never have been found. Those are the two things that Sam brought the investigators right to the spots and was like, this is what I remember, this is what happened, this is
Yeah.
how it went down, and this is where you can find evidence of said trauma or bodies or whatever.
Right.
Why would, to your point, why would he put himself out there? He likely probably wouldn't have been connected to any of these. So that tells me he's got a conscience. I think that if Sam hadn't said anything, it'd still be a cold case today.
Yeah, for sure.
Here's the other thing. Parents have an unbelievable amount of control over their children.
Mhm.
Like, Ernie was Sam's father. I mean, there is just inherently this control that parents have. And regardless of how tall or big you grow up to be, Sam being bigger than his father, it doesn't matter. That's his dad, that's his father. There's just an element of control that parents can have over their kids. And when wielded in a not good way, it can be very, very volatile. It can be very, very harsh. I believe that Sam was fucking fearful. I believe he was fearful.
Yeah.
And if he was forced to do things, it wasn't because he wanted to do them or it wasn't because he was a willing participant. It was because his father forced him to. Because it was either do what I say or I'm going to kill you. And the threat of at any point in time your father could turn a gun on you and kill you, that's got to be I just don't even know how somebody could live with that. I don't know
Right.
how Sam was able to. I think he probably just did what he had to do to survive.
I agree.
I don't know that he was an accomplice. That doesn't sit right.
Or not a willing
Right.
accomplice. So,
If he did anything, it was because he was forced to, because he thought, if I don't do this, I'm going to be killed.
yeah. So, that's the fucked up wrath of terror and torture of Ernie Christie and the murder of Sandy Turpin and his wife Claire. I would assume, I'm going to just go out on a limb and say that she was murdered as well.
For sure.
And he just tortured and abused so many people that we'll never know the actual number because they were just so scared to come forward. And
He let Patty go and he didn't kill Sam. Like, why?
my thinking with Sam is probably like he would be the one that would raise red flags for Ernie. Like if his son was just suddenly gone,
Yeah. I
he's
didn't
the
think of
only one,
that.
like caretaker. But these other women that nobody knew where they were, whatever, like he could do whatever the fuck he wanted with. But if like his parents notice that Sam, wasn't at the house anymore, they're probably going to alert authorities and those are going to raise red flags and draw attention to Ernie. That's my only theory was like he's the one person I can't touch because they're going to come after me
That's a
looking
good
for him.
theory. Do you think deep down inside Ernie actually loved Sam somehow, some way, and that's why he also didn't harm him any more than just like beating the shit out of him?
I don't know.
It really pisses me off that he lived his whole life. I mean, dying at the age of 61 from congestive heart failure that's very young. That's young.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
didn't live very long, but there was no, what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't held accountable for
Yeah.
any of this shit that he did. He just lived his life and like fucking whatever. And no one ever came after him. He was never arrested. He did 3 years for what? I mean,
Shooting at houses, but nothing that like none of the people that he hurt, except his ex-wife, but then he got off on that.
yeah,
And I think that just sent him into like, oh, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
he was intending to kill her. If she hadn't have like taken that opportunity to like jump,
Oh, for sure.
like he would have killed her. I don't think that Claire and Sandy are the only people that Ernie has killed. I think there's other women that have gone missing and are probably cold cases and that he's responsible for.
Yeah.
But how are you ever going to prove it? Decades later and
Unless it's like cases with, cold cases or whatever that they end up, retesting evidence, and maybe Sam can provide DNA
yeah,
to
maybe.
possibly link it to Ernie. I don't know. But like I said, I know they were looking into cold cases. I mean, a lot of times when there's drug addicts or people living lifestyles that are dangerous or whatever, like a lot of times they aren't reported missing.
Yeah, you're right.
Who knows how
This
many women he lured and drugged up and did something with, and their bodies are
is
on their
disgusting.
land somewhere or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
And this is the perfect case to dissect about nature versus nurture. One of my
Exactly.
most favorite things to talk about because you mentioned earlier that Ernie's parents, when Sam was living with them during the time that Ernie was incarcerated, he thrived because his
Hmm.
grandparents, Ernie's mother and father, were lovely people. They were
Right.
lovely people. And so they obviously, I suspect, raised Ernie in a loving way, yet this is the monster he is. So,
Right. And then that monster created a son who had a heart and a conscience and came
mhm.
forward. And I don't know what his relationship's like with his kids, but Sam has 4 kids.
Oh,
And I'm assuming he seems like a very gentle, kind soul. I mean, just based on interviews, who fucking knows?
sure.
But generationally, he's like the shit smear in a kind sandwich. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it absolutely, you can grow up in a very kind environment and come out a monster, or you can grow up in the worst environment and come out a kind, caring person and raise your children completely differently than you were raised.
Wow. That was a hell of a story. And the way it started, I was convinced that Blue had something to do with this, and he didn't.
Yeah,
Poor
nothing like,
sucker just was like, my wife left me. I don't know.
I was like, I'm gonna do this case on Sandy, and then there wasn't much there, and then it was like everything with Ernie just like escalated and like built. So the case became kind of about his wrath, but there's really nothing about Sandy. Like I found one newspaper article,
That's sad.
and there was nothing else about her being married. Like the only reason I know the name Blue is because her friend Tess in an interview
Shared
said
that.
that she suspected him and that she confronted him. And that was like all the information that there was. Fucking crazy. I just wish that the day could have been seen that Ernie was arrested and that all the shit that he got away with came to an end and
Yeah,
he
and that he
knew
was
that
held
he
accountable.
wasn't. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like this big balloon that just got burst, like, because now we have closure, but the person that was responsible is never going to be brought to justice.
And just lived every day thinking, I do what I want. Fucking Ernest. Ernest goes to hell. That's gonna be a new movie. Know what I mean, Vern? Anyway, there's that. Okay. So thank you, Carrie, for listening. Thank you, everyone else, for listening, for sharing the podcast with your friends and family and other true crime fans. We appreciate it. Wherever you listen to your podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. What else do we got? If you have any case suggestions, send an email to crimehotelpod@gmail.com.
Mhm.
And thank you for your support. We appreciate you guys so fucking hard.
Wicked had.
Yeah. the hottest. But with that, goodbye, Carrie.
Goodbye, Jamie.
I love you.
Oh my God, I love you so much.
Check your whatever the fuck.
And you get to kind of bloop, 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 bloop all along.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm nauseous. It was crazy.
Is it worth seeing a whale? I don't know.
Sorry about that. I just got all fucked up.
It's Florida up in here.
Not a big fan.
Cool.
And like humans are just fucking rude.
And Jeremy. Now I gotta go. God damn it.